Hi, welcome to Convos with the Yorros. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Carla. We are a married couple sharing weekly conversations about God, family, ministry, and everything in between. We tell our story because we really did see God move in our lives in the way that we read about in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And we're like, people need to know about this.
And we were just surprised, and we're like, but this happens all the time, and we've seen it happen in our lives. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And those are the different ways that God can speak, right? And we really want to hammer in the fact that God speaks so individually to all of us. I think a lot of people think that, only from a pastor they can hear from God, or from a prophet, that comes by to preach at a church as a special guest. And, that God only, like when we think of God speaking to us, we probably think about, the bishop or the prophet or the apostle that comes to church and gets people jumping and dancing in the spirit and all these things. But like, those are, yes, awesome things, manifestations of the movement of God.
God uses them as well.
Yeah. And we love that. But I think we forget that God can also speak very much in a personal manner to us. But it's always the most important thing is read the Bible, because that's how you're going to test. Is this what I'm hearing? Is this really sound like God? That's going to be something that we're going to get into. I think it'd be great to get into in just a moment. But we really need to, and we want to hammer in the fact that God can speak to us personally, and that you don't have to wait for someone to come and give you some word, which is amazing. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not a Christian, what is all this hocus pocus, God talking and creepiness? Yeah. Listen, like, we really want to hammer in the fact that we serve a living God, and we are not afraid to say like that we have heard the Lord speak to us personally before. I think some people go to church for years and just never hear the voice of God. You know what I'm saying? And that makes me sad, because I think, like I said, what we read in the Bible should be alive in our daily lives. Right. It should be something that we're experiencing. It didn't stop there.
And again, when we say hear the voice of God, we don't mean that you heard an audible like, my child, not that. That's terrifying.
It can happen.
It can happen, and it happens to people. I believe it's happened to you before. You've heard, right?
Not audibly. No? I've never. No. I think it would scare me to death.
My mother said once, that's the one time, and I've never. Yeah. But I felt like he's speaking to me. Like, it's almost like for those of you that are married, you will understand. It's almost like
I'm so interested to know where this is going.
Have you ever gone, husbands specifically, have you ever gone to do something and you can hear already what your wife is going to tell you? Like, I know it's funny, but it's just like that. You can already hear what God is saying, and it's almost like there's a voice already activated in your mind. It's wonderful. But that happens with me and you all the time. I'm like, let me just put this down. I already know what she's going to say.
And I think so, I think hearing like God can be like that as well. Like you just feel him, and when you can get to know God intimately, I think that's another thing that this whole episode boils down to is like, you can get to know God in an intimate and powerful way.
It's for his children. It's for his people.
I don't think we're meant to know him through the pastor. Like, I want people to know that they can pray and they can hear the Lord. Right. And I think sometimes people don't want to hear from God, or say, I can't hear God, because we almost know what he's going to say. Just like the example you just gave. Like, we know he's going to be like, that whole girl you with. Yeah. You got to stop that smoking, that funny stuff. And you need to stop hanging out with that girl. She ain't doing you no good. Yeah. Like, I think sometimes we're afraid because we know exactly what he's going to say.
Yeah. Because you're going to be pulled out of your comfort zone.
Or the people that say, I don't want to go to church because I am not good enough. Or like, I want to get my life together and then I'll go to church. And
you go to church to get your life together.
Yeah, that is the place to get it together. Yeah,
you go to a home with a bunch of messed up people. And you guys are all trying to fix things together.
Yes.
It's literally the way it is.
We're all messed up in church. Or the people that are like, I don't think God's, or they don't want to believe in the Lord because, people at church suck. You know, come on, we've all heard it. That part gets me as well, because I'm like, if it wasn't for the Lord's mercy and grace, which is the reason he even speaks to us in the first place,
Right.
because he is so merciful and he is so kind. But you know, we're all messed up in church, so just come join the mess. But we all have our things, and it's not like let's stay messed up. It's so fun and trendy to be messed up nowadays. It is not. Like, God will fix you and heal you, and the big part of that is that he will speak to you.
And everybody will together, finding ways out of their ditches, finding ways out of their holes. You go to church and you find someone who came out of an addiction that maybe you're in, and that's how God speaks to you. He speaks to you through their testimony and through how you saw them come out of their addiction, and you understand that means I can come out of mine.
Yeah.
That means that this mountain is conquerable. That means that this hole can be dug out of because it's been done before. You know, you see stuff like that.
Yeah. So like what we're trying to say is there's a diverse way. There's diverse ways, that God can speak to you. He can speak to you through the testimony of others, hearing his word preached on the altar. But
that's right.
I think we're really focusing today on he can get down to the nitty gritty with you. He can get into the whole, whether you dug it yourself or you fell into it. He'll get in there with you and help you get out. You know, he's so good. It's not like, you know, the preacher just preaching at you. It's like you go home and you still feel his presence with you.
Right.
Wherever you are, you feel him talking to you and telling and dealing with things that are inside of you that other people don't even know about.
Right. What do you think, Carla? Well, I'll answer the question first.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll change it up for a little bit. Like normally you ask the person the question, but we'll change it. I think that it's important to hear the voice of God because you need guidance. I believe the voice of God and listening to the voice of God, it's a big guiding factor in our lives. I believe wholeheartedly that as believers, as a man of God, leading my home, leading my wife, I feel like I need guidance from the Lord. I feel like I need to ask God, well, what do you want next for my family? What's in this next chapter? What's in this next journey? We made it out of this mess. We made it out of this hole. And now I have to sit here and I have to patiently listen to you and ask you, what are my next steps? Because I'm not going to take my wife down an incorrect path. I refuse to do that. I'm not going to take her down a hole or down a path to where I'm going to create more anxiety for my wife, more trouble for my wife. There's an importance to listening to the voice of God, because you are not I'm thinking for the men or for the leaders of the home. There's an importance to listening to the voice of God because it is more than just yourself that you are responsible for. So what do you think is the importance of listening to the voice of God?
I love that you mentioned that, because decisions that we make today can impact us for years. We talk about that all the time. And it's something that I hear you tell young people and even tell your own brother all the time. Like what you decide to do today, even if you're young, it's going to impact you for forever. So I think that's a big part for me of hearing the voice of God.